Good afternoon. So, I just made a post about the last packet going out to the federal clerk in Austin, Texas. I know that many of the documents are sealed, but I'm going to give you a heads up of what things are included. Just a few things. There are 8 to 10 live stream videos that have been that has the transcripts, the timestamps, and the narrative that was portrayed to the public. There are exhibits of live chats and who participated in those particular videos. I would say that 7 of the videos are from this year alone. So, those are probably the first 10 exhibits. And then you have clip videos that were made by an individual with the meaning of individuals, a variety of individuals, being attacked and assaulted by a group of individuals. There is a reference to 5 clip videos of particular YouTubers, including myself, that were attacked by various other members of the YouTube community. So you have 5 to 6 of those as exhibits. Then you have a referral from Sumner County Sheriff's Department to Clarksville Police Department. And I posted a picture of one of the pages last night. I didn't state to who it was sent to, but they were notified to stop harassing me and some other individuals concerning Green Hoodie. Green Hoodie was cleared in December of 2024. And to have people still consumed with placing innocent individuals in the pathway of receiving threats and harm and inappropriate behaviors is not kosher. It's not accepted. So you have one police communication log from Sumner County Sheriff's Department to Clarksville stating that it was reported, and that is concerning a video that was recently uploaded. Then you have 6 more police reports. A very interesting police report that has not been released to the public yet, that the officer suggested that warrants be issued to 3 YouTubers. Those warrants have not really been pursued for the threats that were made in person. These threats were made in real life, in real time. However, they have been documented. Evidence was gathered by a private eye that I employed. And then you have an affidavit from a detective of a police department who investigated 2 APS reports that originated from Tennessee and went interstate all the way through Arkansas to the state of Texas, which in itself is interesting, because what it proves is that 2 states were involved in adult protective service issues that originated by threats made in Tennessee towards myself. There is a affidavit signed by a detective of a police department that he investigated those reports as requested by Adult Protective Services, and they are legitimate. And you think to yourself, well, why is that so important? That is important because the threat was made in Tennessee. APS of Tennessee thought the threats were so valid that they contacted APS in Texas, and they contacted law enforcement in Texas to investigate whether I made it home safely, whether the assault was so bad by these YouTubers. So that constitutes an interstate jurisdictional handover. And what I mean by handover, it went from Tennessee to Texas. That is the reason why it is being handled in a Tennessee federal courtroom. Because when someone did that, someone thought the threats were so credible that they involved, I mean, you're talking about a state agency of Tennessee contacting law enforcement in the state of Texas, and a detective came to me twice and said, "Are you okay?" Once was in 24. Once was this year. So that detective did an affidavit for my PI. And it was sent as an exhibit today to the federal courthouse in Austin, Texas. In addition to that, you have another affidavit from a witness who was with me, who was threatened also. That particular affidavit is probably going to be sealed for the protection of that individual. Then, let's see what else is in that evidence packet. Let's see. Oh, you have the United States Postal Service. You have 7 exhibits. You also have 4 exhibits from the Platform X. And those exhibits and the letter from the Inspector General and from the Coppers Cove postmaster, they conducted an investigation. Hello, everyone. They conducted an investigation because subscribers and followers of someone on X posted an overnight package from the United States Post Office that was being delivered to Lesniak. One of his associates received that package, and it was stated on the Platform X that I sent anthrax to this attorney. This attorney handed over private legal documents to one of his associates. That associate took that envelope, posted it on X, and you had all kinds of people responding to that. Like I stated earlier today, I haven't finished uploading the other video that I did this morning. 4 people, just 4, that commented that I sent anthrax to Pennsylvania in that envelope. Their comments were used as evidence in this federal TRO today. And like I stated earlier, I have nothing against these subscribers or followers. What I have a problem with is Lesniak handing over private legal documents to his associate, and his associate putting that out on a social media platform. So the investigation done by the local post postmaster, and the investigation that was done concerning the package proves that both Lesniak tampered with mail and that his associate lied on X. So there is 25 pieces of evidence for the temporary ROs to be given. The affidavit, the post office, the detective's affidavit, the PI's investigative report, they're all official. They're all certified. They all have seals. The warrant procedurals from Tennessee, it's by a certified police officer in Tennessee. The communication between Sumner County and Clarksville, Montgomery County PD, it's on their letterhead. I mean, it is what it is. The evidence concerning a judge in Tennessee, it is sealed. And the reason why it is sealed is because that judge, although he did wrong, he is part of my original complaint. And his documents are sealed in the original complaint. I think there's a three paragraphs narrative of what he did and the logic of why he did it, according to the individuals that were in court the day that he denied the restraining order and the warrants for the YouTubers. And that is the primary reason why this is at the federal level now, because some individuals in Tennessee believe that if you are threatened by reality individuals or personalities, that they come before regular people, and that's not the truth. You know, we're living in America. Everyone should have the same rights. So we have that issue. I'm not going to tell you what the 5 sealed documents are. There are 5 sealed documents that are only available to Judge Esposa and the judge advocate. I think her name's Susan Highfield. So she is the one, it makes the referral or the decision whether the main judge will receive this and act on it within 15 days. So it was kind of split up because the motion for the TROs was filed Wednesday, and due to a conflict of interest, I had to mail the rest of the packet another motion today. But honestly, you would think if 2 police departments called you less than 4 weeks ago and stated to you, hey, you need to be quiet because she can pursue this against you, that you would have been quiet. You would have thought that about 7 weeks ago when I made a live and stated, you need to stop. Please stop doing this. That you would have listened. But you didn't. And so, here we are, 7 or 8 weeks later, 2 months later, and I had to select 21 pieces of evidence against people. That's not all the evidence, but 21 pieces of evidence. Affidavits, postmasters, letters, evidence from Pennsylvania, evidence from Tennessee, evidence from Texas. Because you would not listen. You just keep on participating. You started off in real life. You hopped on social media platforms and you continued there. And then you went back to real life. So, that's 3 strikes. And it's been almost 2 years. So, I mean, I gave you grace and I gave you mercy. So, it's over with. It's up to the federal court now. And God forbid that you try anything while it is pending in the court, the courtroom. I hope to God that you are smart enough to realize not to do anything while it's on the docket. Because, it's going to be really bad. Really bad. So basically, that's what's included in the motion for the TRO, except for the sealed documents, and that's the protection for the judge and protection for myself and the witness, one of the witnesses, because that witness has remained private, and I do not want one witness. I do not want anything to happen to that witness, because I know how it is on YouTube. They will come after that person. So, it's a waiting game now. And I just want you all to know that I haven't released everything, because I really don't believe everything should be released. A lot of things have been found out, but it's a sad situation. I know that if you release everything, that it creates drama and it creates hysteria amongst everyone. And the sad point is this: there's already enough drama out there with documentation that if anyone had any more documentation concerning people on YouTube, can you imagine what kind of hell they would live through? Even if they did wrong, it doesn't matter. I mean, you just release what you need to when you're applying for a protective order or a restraining order. You just release what you need to. You don't have to release everything. But I wanted to give you guys just a brief acknowledgement of what is in that federal docket, that motion. So, you all have a good weekend. Try to be safe. Get out and enjoy what weather, nice weather we have. That, soon it will be September and we will be getting into cold weather. But anyway, have a good afternoon. If you're traveling this weekend, enjoy yourselves. And but the temporary restraining orders are against 4 individuals, just 4, and they are not who you think they're for, but they are for 4 individuals. But right now there are 6 cases, and 2 of those cases have been settled off the books because individuals have already served time, made restitution for what they did. And this morning, after I did my live, we had a meeting concerning another case. So, and all this stems from the same tree. So it's just amazing. Personally, I grew up on the East Coast. I used to like Pennsylvania. I went there a lot throughout my young life. But as an adult, I would say Philadelphia has become so abrasive to everyone that it's not safe even at the airport. I mean, it's just, people are so ugly at times up there. And it's perplexing to me why this type of behavior exists at all. But that's just the way it is. But anyway, have a good weekend. Enjoy your travels. Enjoy your barbecues. Get out, do some exercise. Be out in nature. Right now I'm at a park. I'm sure you can hear, I don't know whether you guys can hear that splashing in the background. I know you guys heard that train. And up there we have the baseball and the football fields. And behind us is a swimming pool, the water park, and the tennis courts. So, anyway, try to get out and have some enjoyment this weekend and protect yourselves and your children and your loved ones and your spouse. And, you know, it is what it is. And that's a sad situation. The only major activities we're going to have this weekend, we are going to be posting, we're taking a trip with a team, and we'll be posting flyers and doing a little grid education certification here. Sometimes I post the locations of where we put up flyers. Sometimes I don't. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. I know they found 2 kids last week, and the team from Texas was in New Mexico and Arizona. They found 2 kids. That's wonderful. They're home. They're safe. And everyone, whether you're law enforcement, whether you're federal, state law enforcement, whether you're military law enforcement or CID, sheriff, state troopers, DOJ, whatever, border patrol, military, the men and women of these organizations, they do try their best. They do. It's just a few within the system fail, and when it becomes a showcase circus, like some of our lives have become, the law enforcement agencies involved cannot really state anything because they're crucified just like some of the victims. And that is a sad situation. Because, let's be truthful, law enforcement wants to give the public a narrative. They do. But if they do, I mean, all hell's going to break loose as soon as they say something. If they give an update about anything, someone's going to take their narrative, their update, and they're going to just tear it to hell. Is that fair? No. Does it cause pain and suffering to the victims and their loved ones? Yes, it does. And that's such a shame. But then you have to look at the other side of the coin, and you have to state, well, why aren't they saying anything? And in my opinion, the reason why no one is coming out is because the situations involving 5 highly noted cases in the United States right now, the narrative is strongly against law enforcement. And they know it. And no matter what they say, even if they say 2 sentences, everyone's going to jump their ass. So why would they say anything? It's safer not to say anything and protect yourself and protect the information than to come out and say something and be crucified again by the public. See, here's the deal. In today's society, with everything being so quick, and our expectations as human beings are, we want to answer right now. We want someone to tell us the answer. But back in the day, let's say 1985, 88, They worked the cases. People were patient. They went on with their own lives, and they didn't want a quick fix. They wanted the truth. Nowadays, people will make up their own lies as factual evidence, and they forget who's working the case because they want to provide a quick answer to everyone. And that is a major problem. People are so impatient with law enforcement that they don't want to answer a truthful answer. And if they were given the truth, they probably wouldn't accept it in the first place because they would say it's a lie. So don't be dumb-minded and think that the cops don't know what's going on. They do. Excuse me for just a minute. So the cops know what's going on. Law enforcement knows what's going on. But I happen to agree with law enforcement. I wouldn't say a word either. Why would you? Because everyone, including myself, I state that there's a problem in Tennessee. And there is. But, you have to give grace to them because they're doing a lot of work. And I'm not going to come out here and bitch at them because they're not going to tell the public everything that's going on. What I am going to do is gather up my own evidence and pay for it myself. And keep the privacy of the individuals that I know things on. Because it all doesn't have to be made public. What do you do with evidence once you get it if you don't make it public? Well, you could do what's called a portfolio assessment. And what do you do with something like that? Well, it's very interesting creative research for a documentary or a book. But when you're doing research, like hiring PIs and people like that, you have to be very careful. First of all, your PI has to be quiet. And they must not participate in social media platforms. Because you hire them, you pay for them, and they're only owed to owe answers to you. Because they're expensive. Number two, any information that you get, you have to keep it in private. And if you share it, it has to be highly redacted. And then when you get around to selling what narrative that you found out, after it's been researched, let's say for 2 years almost, if you're going to sell it, which I wouldn't sell it, I would collect it and do a research documentary. Or a correlated parallel program of study for a university. That's the other option. And what you learn when you do something like that is you learn how social media itself influences victims of crimes. It's a very fascinating research to do something like that. And it's very hard not to get involved with the people you're researching, especially if you have met them in person and you have interviewed them and you look at them when they're telling you a statement and they can tell by your expression, why are they looking at me like that? And that's because, their answer, it wasn't of the norm. It wasn't what you expected. It was something out there in left field, and you're thinking to yourself, why would they have said that? And you just make a notation when you're taking notes, or if you're using a recorder or whatever, you just make a note. So that's what you can do with research. The correlated parallel researches, it's interesting because you get various perspectives of how victims and their families behave and how they think and how they react to crimes and being a victim, and how lacking is one program in the United States that we have it in every state, but a lot of local and federal law enforcement agencies do not provide victim advocacy groups to people of crimes. And our federal taxes pay for those type of programs. And I researched 6 parents of missing children within, I would say, the last year and a half. I mean, extensive research. And when I asked them that question, did law enforcement give you information, refer you to your state advocacy program for being a victim or having your loved one be a victim? The answer is no. And that is so strange to me. And yes, there's been letters written to the Attorney General concerning these missing connections for these victims. There's letters been written to governors. There's been phone calls, faxes sent to D.C. about this. Because whether you believe it or not, our taxpayers are paying for victim advocacy. And that should be an option to all victims of crimes, no matter what the crime is. It doesn't matter. Because if the resources are not being used, they're federal funds, and they're being distributed to the states, and the local PD stations and the sheriff's departments have access to that revenue, that pathway to help victims, and they're not utilizing it, there's a big problem there. So, I myself believe that is neglect from law enforcement. And most of you know how I feel about ADA. I believe that the denial of federal ADA rights, it applies everywhere. And many people don't believe that, but what you have to understand, anyone can have an accident or have a health problem at any time, and that federal ADA automatically applies to you. That's what people need to understand. Whether you have a tumor in your brain, whether you have an aneurysm, whether you have a TBI, whether you're diagnosed in your late 30s with being autistic or whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyone can have an experience and become eligible for ADA. That's what it's there for. In fact, it was initiated about 37 years ago, and this past spring there was a big meeting in DC concerning ADA. Updating the rights for ADA, ADA clientele, because some individuals within the legislative body, they want to change ADA. And there was a big meeting, I believe it was the latter part of March, April. So that's applicable. ADA is different than 504. 504 is more of an educational setting. ADA, it applies to adults and children. And it's a wonderful bill. It's a wonderful law. And it's applicable to everyone. So that's what you have to have in consideration when you're looking at ADA. And when you're looking at 504, when you're doing IEPs or ARD meetings, what you have to understand there, 504 is written in place of an IEP. And 504, when you're going to an IEP meeting or ARD, admission, dismissal, or review, meeting for children in schools, educational settings. A 504 is a temporary documentation of someone with a temporary disability. Unlike an IEP is for long-term chronic diseases. But I encourage everyone to look at the resources within your own state. And if you have a lot of time, you can break it up. You could break it up and you can say, hey, I want to look into 504. And give yourself a month and read everything you can about it. Become familiar with it. Because some of these, I mean, you would not believe some of the little, tiny fragments of legalities within all these laws. And it's just ridiculous that the advocacy programs that we have through federal funds are not given out to victims. But the one good thing about these advocacy victims programs in each state, if you can prove that the programs were not shared for you, or if you reach out and you file the paperwork, then you can be reimbursed. That is the reason why it's so important when you're doing research or you're a caregiver for someone who becomes a victim, that you document everything, that you go through what is required for any organization. It could be mental health of a state, mental health offices of a state. It could be a group facility. It could be your local government. The umbrella of a local municipality's insurance company, a police department, a sheriff's department. No matter what it is, you go through the requirements of their complaint system. You keep a copy. You hand carry it to them and you get it date and stamped. And sometimes the person who receives it, the clerk or receptionist, they'll sign it. They'll put a seal on it and they'll sign it with the time and the date. That is very good evidence to have. When you go to, the other day when I did that live concerning reopening cases and sealing them, having them sealed, if your child I would say, your child started getting essayed at 5 years old. Your child is now 14 and you decided to become a YouTuber when your child was 11. You want to protect your child? You go back, you collect the evidence that you have, if you kept it. You provide a motion in court to seal those records so that your child does not become a victim on YouTube by other YouTubers for sexual assault. Even though being 14, those records should not be available to anyone. I mean, people are sneaky. And so you have to look out for yourself and those that you love, or those that you support, or those that you advocate for. And it's never too late to protect those that you care for, or those that you're in the background advocating for. It's never too late. And it's never too late to teach someone how to do it. And it's really good to share your knowledge with other human beings, because once they know how to do it and they experience it, they can pass it on. There is a young lady who lives in Kentucky, Corbin, Kentucky. I met her within the last 2 years. And when I first met her, she was the ass kisser of a YouTuber. And I sat back and I watched her for like 5 or 6 months. And I got in touch with her and I told her, I said, look, I said, you will make a good advocate for your home state. You have so much potential. And I mean, she had a lot of talent, this young woman. I mean, she's probably 30 by now. She had a lot of talent. And she has she had energy. She has so much energy. And within the last year and a half, she has got her certification in peer-to-peer counseling, coaching, life coaching. And she is attending a local community college, studying basic forensics right now. I'm very proud of that individual. And when I reached out to her, I think she was kind of offended because I told her, I said, you don't have to kiss someone's ass to be productive in society. Because the potential was there. I mean, and she did not have a lot of self-esteem when I first met her, but she's a go-getter. I mean, that young woman, she is going to go far in her state. And she loves children. That young girl, that young woman loves children. And she's going to make, well, she already is, a strong advocate for children. And she recently went through the foster care system, and she's now fostering kids. So she's come a long ways. She is a wonderful person, and I just give her kudos because, I mean, it's nice to see someone be successful, and she has. And she will go far in life. And she will continue the love of her life. And the love of her life is the joy of helping children in their families. And that's wonderful. And it's not just any child. It could be any child, but she has a strong love for disabled children. And I'm very proud of her. But anyway, to me, that is a success story. Because she is going to be around for hopefully 30 or 40 years. I'll be way gone by then. But she will continue helping others. And that's what it's all about. Helping children. Helping others. And that is what it's about. Sharing knowledge with someone to be successful. Setting someone up for success. Sharing knowledge. And it doesn't have to be out here on social media platforms. There's a lot of people in everyday lives, in their own communities, within their own states, who make a big difference. And kudos to all those people. Because those individuals are the backbone of reform and advocacy. The quiet ones. They're the ones who make the biggest difference. The quiet ones who work in the background, who help to change legislative laws, make bills become laws. The ones in the background writing the narrative for the victims. And these type of people, they are precious to our society. Because they don't require a lot of fame. They do it for purpose. They believe in the principles of their own lifestyles. And those type of people are highly valued, but less seen in our society. And they're not well known. And that is their choice. But I appreciate those type of people. It is better to participate in change and share the glory than to look at yourself I'm going to move the phone down because 2 boys are passing by. Than to share the glory just with yourself. You cannot seek recognition just for yourself and not provide the shared glory to other individuals who carried you or helped carry you to meet a goal. It's not right. It's selfish. And that's what a lot of people are unwilling to do. They're unwilling to share their glory with those that carried the road with them, that carried everything to the end for the accomplishment or the goal to have been met. And it's not about one person completing anything. It's about the goal being achieved for the protection of all involved. That's what it's about. And until some people realize it's not about a me situation, but it's about the principle of the matter of what you want to achieve, then you just get stuck there. The stability, your foundation is wobbly because you're unwilling to share in the growth and the glory with others. And that is a major responsibility if you are in a leadership position. You have to share that glory with those who carried the whole project through. That's just the way it works. And if you are unable to do that, then here's the problem. You are self-centered. You're selfish. You're not really a true leader. And it's all about yourself. And I know that's a hard pill for many people to swallow because I am realistic. I know a lot of people put more into a project than some others. It doesn't matter. If you have someone that does all your typing, or you have a researcher that does all your reference data sheets, they're as important as the person who goes out here and does a grid search, or a person who interviews witnesses. They're all important. They all need to have kudos, thank you, and recognition. And if they do not want their name out there, that's fine also. Just recognizing them for who they are and their participation is enough. No one accomplishes anything in life by themselves. And if anyone is telling you that, then that's a lie, because that's not the real world. Well, folks, it's getting kind of hot out here. I imagine it's about 101 right now. So I'm going to get off of here. You guys have a nice evening. Have a wonderful weekend. Get out and get in that water. Enjoy the waterways, the swimming pools, the beaches, the creeks, the lakes. If you have a kayak, make sure you get out there and kayak this weekend. Have a good one. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye, everyone.